Welcome back to Beginner Miniatures. Today I am painting the Arkham Gaurd from the Batman Miniatures game by Night Models. I'm beginning by base coating all of the blue with a dark desaturated blue. I'm trying to be careful around the areas that will end up being black, so I have to do less cleanup after I finish the blue. The next thing I did was I took a dark blue wash and went over all of that blue to deepen down all of the recesses. I wanted to be careful though and made sure I didn't let it pool too much anywhere. Then I took a slightly lighter color than the base tone, and also with a little more saturation, and started building up the highlights on any of the raised surfaces. Around the pockets I made sure to leave a very dark line around it so it would really make them pop and look more three-dimensional. Then here I'm just going over with a brighter highlight pass, going over a smaller area across all of it. I just took a while going back and forth and pushing it and seeing how far I wanted to go with this color. Then for a final highlight pass, I went very lightly with a very bright azure blue across all of the sharpest and most raised areas, including focusing a little bit more on his shoulders since those are higher up and would be catching more light. Then with all of the blue done, I moved on to his belt. For this I wanted to be really careful so I wouldn't mess up any of the blue I already painted. I started off with a very dark brown mixed in with some black. I mixed black in with almost all of my base tones so that way it would create a really nice and dark shadow so it would look more like they're in night at Gotham. Then moving on to highlight the belt, I just moved into the dark brown that I started with without the black and started blotching out all of my highlight areas. So all of the raised surfaces, edges, as well as a few lines that I decided would be my spots of highlight to create a shiny reflective leather. For the next highlight, I worked into a tannish khaki color and started going across with thinner lines across all the sharp edges and right in the middle of all of my highlights I had already put down. For some of the vertical patches of highlight I had on the belt, I worked back and forth with sideways strokes to create a feathered transition out from them. Then for the belt buckle, I wanted to try some non-metallic metal since it's such a small area to work on, so I began by base lining it with a thin line of black, and then I chose a few spots to highlight it up super bright with an almost pure white with a tiny bit of blue mixed in. I also used that same white color to highlight up his baton as well as his radio on his belt. Then I went ahead and started base coating the skin, and again for this, just like the other base coats, I mixed in a bit of black for the base color so it would have some nice shadowy effect. Right here it looks pretty strong because I still don't have enough layers on though. Then when the base coat was finished up, I just started mixing in lighter colors into that skin tone and covering smaller areas on his arms so it would bring it up to a nice highlight. At this point I was just ignoring the arm straps that he had on for his shoulder pads and just painted it all like skin so I could do it as one chunk and then come back in and blackline it. And right here, I'm just cleaning up the base with some black so it's all one tone to work up to for my highlights. And just cleaning up some of the other black on his vest, so that way everything that's going to be black in the final tone has a black base coat to work from, so that way I don't have to cover up any of the blue or anything that had splashed over. Then for highlighting up his vests and pads, I used a light tan color added to black so it came out looking mostly gray with a tint of brown, so it would look almost a little leathery and just so it would be set apart from his helmet. I'm just going from part to part here, deciding which areas of the black should be highlighted and which are facing up and would catch more light. And for the next highlight pass, you can see some more of the brown coming through as I'm going over it. And for this, I'm hitting a lot smaller areas and more of the sharper edges. For a lot of this, I want it to be a fairly shiny texture, so I'm going pretty abrupt with my highlights. Around the arm guards, I needed to make sure that the brown didn't overpower it, so that way it would be well set apart from the skin tone though. Then I came in with almost pure white with just a touch of blue and went over all of his logos and insignias like his GCPD badges as well as his SWAT logo on his vest. Just overbrushing it so I would leave a little bit of darkness in the recesses. Then for his helmet, I used more of that slightly bluish white, and I started dry brushing across the entire thing, catching the face mask, and then right in the top I also mixed in a little bit of green into that, so I would create just a slightly different color there to set it apart from the face mask bit. Then for the visor, I started to mix in small bits of white into a black to start to bring it up to a gray and bringing it into a vertical line with smaller and smaller highlights. And as well, when I started to get to the end, I started to mix in a little bit of red, just so it would come out with a little bit of a warmer hue, so that way it would look cooler. With that, the figure is done, so now I'm just moving on to the base, and I'm beginning with an all-over overbrush with just some dark brown. Then I used some varying shades of brown to pick out the leaf as well as the stick that are on the base, just so it would be set apart from the dirt. Then I took a light brown and dry brushed across the entire thing to give it some highlights. This is including the stick and the leaf right there, just so it would all tie together while still looking different. Then I went over with one thin coat of gray across the rocks, and this still let some of that light brown highlighting I just put on with the dry brush show through. Then I moved right onto washes, and I just took some black and brown wash and dabbed it on in two different spots and kind of wet blended it across so I would have a little bit of variation in the shadows. And then of course you can't forget the vital step of painting the base rim black just to clean everything up. And once this had dried, I sprayed him all over with a layer of dull coat to make all the sheens nice and matte, so that way everything matched. And with that, he's done. I really enjoyed painting this guy. I really like Night Model's sculpts. I think they're really fun to paint. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.